So let me be clear. What I'm about to tell you is a theory. I don't have proof of this. I don't have evidence of this other than to say, living for 50 years on the planet, working in this industry for over 20 years, my wheels are turning, and I want to talk about what Phil Spencer said and what Jim Ryan said about Activision yesterday and today regarding how they feel about how the company is handling all the accusations of toxic work environment, sexual harassment, potentially rape, on and on and on. So I don't have evidence of this, but I'm telling you something right now. And again, forgive me, I'm sick. Jim Ryan, in my opinion, just a theory, and Phil Spencer know something's going to happen. They know another shoe's about to drop, and I'm going to tell you in a second what that is. But first, let's be clear. I'm not a cynic. I'm a realist, okay? Do I think Jim Ryan and Phil Spencer are good people? I have no reason to believe they're not. Certainly they present as such, but so what? But ultimately, I've never heard anything negative about either one of them. And so I'm willing to always assume the best until someone gives me a reason not to. So I'm not suggesting their spirit and soul wasn't 100% behind these statements they made. And if you don't know, let me just, the high concept is yesterday or 2 days ago now, Jim Ryan from PlayStation says, he writes this email to the company, Activision has not done enough to address a deep-seated culture of discrimination, and discrimination and harassment. I think he said, we reached out to them. We do not believe their statements of response properly address the situation. Right? I also want to say one of these guys said they were deeply troubled. Phil Spencer takes it a little bit further. He came out the next day and said, I have strong values for a warm and inclusive environment at Xbox, talking about that. But he goes on to say that Xbox is evaluating all aspects of our relationship with Activision Blizzard and making an ongoing proactive adjustments. And there's more details you can read and stuff, but that's the high concept, right? So while I do think these guys probably believe in their heart of hearts, unless we have a reason to doubt, which I don't, they seem like good, decent humans. They're going, yeah, this isn't acceptable. This is bad. We don't want our companies to run this way. Absolutely. But you know, this is not sort of a off the cuff. These are not people who do off the cuff interviews. Like, yeah, I'm just going to fucking send out an email. These are heads or co-heads or subheads of some of the biggest public entertainment companies on the planet and technology companies on the planet. You say certain things like, hey, we are reevaluating our relationship with the largest third-party video game publisher in the world in terms of console games. That could send the stock price doing things, right? You don't share that information unless you have a real reason to share it. You could just as easily come out and said something. Let's assume they know nothing, and there's no other shoe in their heads that are going to drop. This is just they're properly responding. They could easily say, and again, these guys don't come out and release emails that are going to be on record if they ever got, pulled into court without running this through the PR machine, the legal machine, right? Come on, man. This is not just like Phil going, hey, you know what? I think I'll write a fucking blog. It's not Jerry Maguire where he wakes up at 3 a.m. and writes the whatever it is, the manifesto. But they could say something if they're more interested in the optics of it, which I'll tell you why they should be. They could say something like, we're looking forward to Activision turning it around. There's no place in our industry for a lack of responsibility and harassment. We look forward to continuing the journey. All of us together. It's hard, it's necessary, but we look forward to continuing to make this industry a great place, right? And then you've said everything and you've said nothing. So if something bad happens at Activision, they're covered. Even if it doesn't, if someone comes to them and says, why are you doing business, blah, blah, blah. It's like, we talked about that. We made it very clear, a public statement, a very strongly worded statement. We're opposed to some of that stuff, and we're very, it's important to us that they change their culture. I said that, right? And it's also not really doing anything. That's the safe route, and that's the logical route, okay? Because you're basically saying something without any threat, and you're saying something without really saying anything, right? But you're saying you're going to reevaluate, or you're constantly evaluating the relationship. It could hit the stock. That's one problem with saying something like that, if you don't actually mean it. What if they do nothing? That's the other problem, right? So let's say that Jim Ryan is coming out and saying this is a problem. Phil Spencer, we're going to reevaluate this relationship. This is unacceptable. Okay, great. Well, What if nothing changes? What if this blows over? What if everybody forgets? And everybody's excited about, you know, the next big Activision game or whatever. You know, Diablo 4 drops and it's like, oh, fun, it's great. Well, then these guys, not Activision, because we've all forgotten and everyone's forgiven Bobby Kotick within reason. You know, the people who give a shit about it won't, but the consumer won't care. Well, suddenly Phil Spencer and Jim Ryan have gone on record going, we have to evaluate this. Who they are is unacceptable. Well, it becomes a very big problem to go back to them at a PR level and go, hey, nothing's changed at Activision. It's the same fucking thing. And you guys said this is unacceptable and you were going to reevaluate, right? So you don't put that language out there unless one of two things. And and again, this is a theory, right? It could all be what you see is what you get, and what they're saying is just what it is. I'm not knocking Sony. I'm not knocking Xbox. I'm not knocking these human individuals. I don't know them personally, either one of them, but they seem fine people. I'm just saying that I think my theory is it's one of two things, okay? Here's what Phil Spencer knows. Here's what Jim Ryan knows, in my theory. Number one is either they know Bobby Kotick is going to resign. They know he is going to resign. My guess is he'll do it over the Thanksgiving break, even though it's the internet. It's not like, it's a dead news day. It'll be all over the fucking place. But my guess is he's going to do it over the break, and they have alerted these folks to it because it's good business. It's whether it's like the boys club and it's like, hey, Jim, hey, Phil, I got to tell you something. I'm going to be resigning in 3 weeks. I want to give you guys a heads up so you can kind of position your optics, all that. It's good business. Maybe the second in command who's taking over knows what's going to happen and has alerted these guys. But the reason it matters is because they will have now been able to say we said something and then Activision did something. But if they don't say anything and then Bobby Kotick resigns, then you could go to Sony, then you could go to Xbox and say, so what? You guys were just going to keep doing business as usual with this guy? They had to say something. They didn't have to say this much, but saying this much, if they know he's going to resign, makes them look better, sends a great message, and it looks like, as an industry, and maybe even Activision, maybe Sony's like, look, we're not working with you. Xbox like, we're not working with you if you have that kind of place, even though in the back of their heads they know Kotick's on the way out. That's option one. The other option is the worst option, which is there's another shoe about to drop that's really bad. And this is all speculative. I don't have any evidence of this. I'm not accusing Bobby Kotick of anything other than what he's already been accused of. But not saying he did it, but he was accused of it. But I mean, you know, what if he is Harvey Weinstein? What if there are more allegations of abusing women? Not just sort of threatening to kill them or saying, I'll destroy you in this lawsuit, like he said to the flight attendant who worked on his the airline that was suing the pilot of his private jet. But what if he really is kind of a shithead? What if he's like Louis C.K. and masturbating in front of these women or whatever it is he's doing, right? What if Phil and Jim know that? Or what if it's worse? What if it is actually assault? What if it is actually rape, right? Well, if they know that's on the way, there's even more reason to get out in front of this. And I'm assuming they know either because, you know, it's, you know, Activision knew about the Wall Street Journal article well in advance before it came out. So I have to assume if there's stuff about to drop, these guys have been alerted. Or maybe it's coming from the second in command at Activision. Who knows? If it exists at all. But those are the only two pieces of logic. Those are the only conclusions that you can come to that make sense. Because if you just take it at face value, it makes no sense. You spook the stock, and you put yourself in a position that if Activision does nothing, you look like you're almost complicit because you said one thing and you did nothing either. So, right? It's got to be one of these two things. Kotick's going to resign, or there's another shoe about to drop regarding Kotick, and it's going to be bad. I don't know if it's true. It sounds true to me. I think it's true. If I had to guess between 1 and 2, my guess is it's 1. My guess is Kotick has decided he's going to resign for whatever reason. I don't think, you know, I don't think this is, I think, to be perfectly fair, the board is right. I don't think it's going to hit their stock in a meaningful way, but there's some, you know, the fact that within 24 hours, the board of directors would all say, no, he's fine. We're behind Bobby Kotick. They must have been like, look, no one's going to care. And even if all these people care, may not really matter, right? I mean, they'll care for a couple of weeks. They'll move on to the next thing, right? So my guess is he's resigning. I don't know what the final straw was for him. Like, unless the board said this is going to hurt the stock, which I'd be lucky. I'd love to know that. I would be grateful to hear that people said, you know what, fuck you, your company's shit. I'm pulling out my money. When has that ever happened? Come on. But that'd be great. My gut tells me, though, it's number one, because number two, that he really is this awful human being that is even more awful than we've heard so far. And there's a lot more skeletons about to come pouring out of that Bobby Kotick closet. That, in this day and age, you never know. It's possible. But that's movie-like almost. So that's a hell of a story if that were to happen. And more often than not, the less dramatic story, which is still horrible, comes true, which is this guy's a piece of shit. He let a lot of shit happen, and he's walking. That's my theory. Let's stay tuned in the next couple weeks, see if it comes true. The good news is, hopefully, regardless of what happens, Activision is on a path of either destruction or change, which the employees who work there and the gamers that like to support those employees with our purchases, we deserve, and certainly the employees deserve, and certainly the women and whoever else has been offended and hurt and harmed by this deserve. So they're either going to collapse, which is great, or they're going to change, which is great. Either way, Bobby Kotick's got to go.